Pope Francis, a champion for the poor and marginalized. Since his election as Pope, Francis has made caring for the poor and marginalized a central aspect of his papacy. His dedication to serving the most vulnerable is not just a key theme of his ministry but also a reflection of his deep commitment to the teachings of Jesus Christ, who showed profound love and care for the poor. Why has Pope Francis made the plight of the poor so central to his work as Pope? Pope Francis' concern for the poor has deep roots in his early life in Argentina, where he saw firsthand the struggles of the impoverished. These experiences shaped his view of the world and nurtured a strong sense of empathy for those suffering from economic inequality. As Pope, he has used his influence to bring attention to global poverty and advocate for systemic changes to address the causes of inequality. In his 2013 apostolic exhortation Evangelii Gaudium, The Joy of the Gospel, Pope Francis famously called the Church to be a poor church for the poor. He emphasized that the Church must not just serve the poor, but also learn from them, recognizing that the poor hold a unique place in God's heart. This call goes beyond charity and urges a deeper commitment to solidarity and social justice. Pope Francis reminds us that poverty is not merely an individual problem, but a structural issue that requires collective action. Pope Francis has repeatedly condemned the growing divide between the rich and the poor, urging political leaders to prioritize the needs of the marginalized over the pursuit of wealth. In his 2015 encyclical Laudato Si', he connected poverty with environmental destruction, calling for a culture of care that protects both the earth and the poor. He urged governments, businesses, and individuals to consider the effects of their actions on the environment and the most vulnerable members of society. Pope Francis has not only spoken out on these issues but has also reached out personally to the poor. He frequently visits homeless shelters, hospitals, and prisons, taking the time to be present with those often overlooked by society. His visits to refugee camps and marginalized communities are not just symbolic but show his deep desire to offer real solidarity and hope to those who suffer. He believes true compassion is not only about offering material help but about restoring dignity to the suffering and giving them a sense of hope. A striking example of Pope Francis' commitment to the poor is his focus on refugees and migrants. In 2016, he initiated a campaign to welcome refugees into Catholic churches and institutions throughout Europe. He has forcefully spoken against the demonization of migrants, urging world leaders to provide safe havens for those fleeing violence and poverty. For Pope Francis, the Church must be a refuge for all, especially for those fleeing war, persecution, and hardship. Pope Francis also calls for a shift in how we view wealth and consumerism. He warns against excessive materialism and the idolization of wealth. He reminds us that true happiness lies not in accumulating possessions, but in loving and serving others, especially the poor. This message is particularly relevant in a world where consumerism too often exploits workers and harms the environment. In conclusion, Pope Francis' papacy has been defined by a deep commitment to the poor and marginalized. His call to be a poor church for the poor is not just a slogan but a challenge to live a life of compassion, solidarity, and justice. Through his advocacy for social justice, personal outreach to the suffering, and his call for systemic change, Pope Francis has become a powerful voice for the voiceless. As Catholics, we are called to follow his example and work toward a world where the dignity of every person is recognized, and the poor are no longer forgotten.